The investigation is linked to an alleged incident that took place in the county back in the 1980s.
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we're looking at times the BBC lost in court.
Adams used to carry the coffins at IRA funerals, the BBC's lawyer told the court.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Petro Poroshenko. In 2019, Poroshenko was the president of Ukraine, but ended up receiving money from the BBC during the last year of his presidency. The cause was an unfounded allegation made by BBC News that he actually paid Michael Cohen, one of Donald Trump's former lawyers, roughly $500,000 to assure a meeting with Trump during his first term in the White House.
This was my first meeting with the American president, and I see the real leader.
This story was a complete lie, smearing Poroshenko on the prestigious 10 o'clock news, and he subsequently made a claim through the High Court. The BBC swiftly admitted to lying and apologised, paying Poroshenko an undisclosed sum for his legal fees and damages incurred by its reporting. John Linwood.
Right, let's move on to this disaster.
I just want to say sorry. I want to apologise to you and to the public.
You may not have heard of John Linwood because he worked behind the scenes at the BBC, overseeing its exorbitant digital media initiative in the early 2010s. This project was a failed attempt to revolutionise the production process within the Beeb, digitising the archive. But when it went wrong, Linwood, the corporation's chief technology officer, got the sack.
The Digital Media Initiative was the BBC's attempt to bring its archiving system into the 21st century.
He then took the BBC to an employment tribunal for unfair dismissal and actually won, with the tribunal seeing evidence that the BBC had decided to sack Linwood before he'd even had the chance to defend himself at a hearing. He said he'd been scapegoated by the Beeb, and officials agreed, awarding him compensation.
But as much as anything else, this is again a tale of in-the-dark BBC management, of misuse of resources. And again, people are questioning whether licence fee payers' money has been spent correctly.
Lord McAlpine.
You'd heard these allegations many years ago at the time of the Waterhouse inquiry.
Oh yes, and it had been all gone over.
The BBC was just one media outlet in trouble over these false allegations. In November 2012, only a few months after the Jimmy Savile scandal broke, news organisations in the UK were desperately looking for more alleged criminals to out to make up for their failings over Savile.
Of course they should have called me, and I would have told them exactly what they learnt later on.
And what was that?
That it was complete rubbish.
Unsubstantiated rumours about Lord McAlpine, a Tory peer, spread largely in part to vague descriptions given in an episode of Newsnight, which made references that Twitter users correctly guessed were about him. McAlpine took legal action immediately, and less than 2 weeks after the episode, the BBC settled for £185,000. He also won £125,000 from ITV for repeating the story.
You're seeking a lot more than the £185,000 you got from the BBC. You're seeking a lot more than that from ITV.
Well, we think they should be paying a little bit more than that, yes.
Neil Hamilton and Gerald Howarth.
I have no idea what Islamobama is. It's the first I've heard of it.
In the 1980s, the BBC got in big trouble for broadcasting an episode of Panorama called Maggie's Militant Tendency, which accused some senior Tory MPs of having links to far-right and fascist groups, claiming that these extremists were influencing Tory policy in Thatcher's administration.
Well, Neil Hamilton was a Tory minister who fell from grace. Now he's UKIP's deputy chair and national campaigns director.
Two of those Tories were Neil Hamilton and Gerald Howarth, who took the BBC to court for libel. It was widely reported on throughout 1986, but eventually the BBC decided it was better to settle, rather than have everything get dragged out for months. They got 25 grand each, though some people thought the BBC could have won had it fought the full case.
But the whole point is, aren't you meant to be, as it were, cleaning up the party?
David Cameron tweeted the other day that he was part of Nigella's team and almost undermined a legal act.
Reuben J. Dodd Jr. This bizarre case dates back to the 1950s and all relates to the BBC's attempt to adapt James Joyce's Ulysses. The issue was an allegation of libel about the portrayal of the character Reuben J. Dodd Sr., which his son argued was defamatory, as the character was himself a caricature. This was all because of a falling out between the real-life Dodd Sr. and novelist James Joyce's father, John, with Dodd Jr. saying that his father's portrayal as a dodgy moneylender was all lies. Miraculously, Dodd Jr. won a settlement from the BBC over this, despite failing to sue Joyce's publishers years ago, before Joyce himself had died. He got £650 for his trouble and a public apology in 1956. Martine Croxall.
The BBC's agreed a settlement with 4 of its female news presenters over claims including age and sex discrimination.
In 2024, it was reported publicly that Martine Croxall and 3 other female BBC presenters were taking the BBC to court after the Beeb removed them from the air and then made them re-interview for their previous jobs. They were suing for age and sex discrimination, as well as unequal pay.
Martine Croxall, Karen Giannoni, Cash Madeira and Anita McVeigh claim they were forced out of their jobs after sham interviews.
Nearly a year on, and it was announced that the quartet had settled their discrimination suit with the Beeb out of court for an undisclosed amount of money, and Croxall has since returned to presenting BBC News after the corporation's humiliating handling of the merger between BBC News and BBC World News.
The 4 news presenters claim the recruitment process for the chief presenter jobs on the new streamlined BBC News channel was rigged.
The High Court. While the BBC often finds itself against the High Court when other people bring cases forward, this time the High Court itself went after the corporation and fined it £28,000 in 2021. The offence? Recording and broadcasting illegally recorded footage from the inside of a courtroom, something that's completely against the law in England and Wales. It was BBC South East Today specifically in the firing line, with the news report in question covering fracking permission being granted in Surrey. Judges suggested that the problem was that the BBC's journalists apparently weren't aware of what contempt of court is, nor how they very clearly committed it, and the BBC did admit to this failure. Miriam O'Reilly.
Well, let's get some more now on the age discrimination case brought by the former presenter of the BBC's Countryfile programme, Miriam O'Reilly.
Similar to Martine Croxall, Miriam O'Reilly also brought an age discrimination suit against the BBC after she got sacked from Countryfile in 2009. This went all the way to an employment tribunal, and it was eventually determined that O'Reilly had been victimised by the Beeb because of her age.
It was hard to take on the BBC because I love the BBC, I loved working there.
Other female presenters also got sacked, and O'Reilly had other allegations to make during proceedings, including that it was suggested she should start using Botox. The Beeb ultimately accepted the ruling, but O'Reilly's television career has unfortunately floundered since then. Or maybe she's just too jaded from her experiences to take more than a handful of TV jobs.
But I felt that I was treated badly because of my age, and standing up to the BBC was the right thing to do, however hurtful, however stressful it has been.
Cliff Richard.
A small convoy of unmarked police cars arrived mid-morning.
In 2014, Cliff Richard seemed to be implicated in the Operation U-Tree investigations, and police raided his house in Berkshire to gather evidence. No evidence was found, but somebody tipped off the BBC, and it had helicopters waiting to broadcast coverage of the search.
From the air, though, the cars could be seen as they parked and as the police team made its way towards the empty apartment owned by Sir Cliff Richard.
The police and BBC were eventually investigated, and then Richard himself took the Beeb to court for violation of privacy. In the end, the BBC agreed to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds in damages and about £2 million to cover his legal fees, which was actually only about half of what he'd spent to pursue the case. Despite coughing up millions, a BBC spokesperson said that they were pleased with the outcome.
It was incredibly emotional for me to think that after 3 years, 11 months and 4 days, it's really finally over.
Gerry Adams.
The man who was killed was Dennis Donaldson, in the beige jacket here, for a quarter of a century, shoulder to shoulder with Gerry Adams in the Irish Republican movement.
In 2016, the BBC claimed that Gerry Adams, who served as president of Sinn Féin for decades, had sanctioned the murder of Dennis Donaldson, a Sinn Féin and IRA member later revealed as an informer working for MI5. This was in 2006, 10 years before the BBC ran its story, which Adams said was defamatory because he had nothing to do with Donaldson's murder and even publicly condemned it at the time.
Clearly, the people who carried out this killing are enemies of the peace process. They're against change, they're against the type of future which many of us have worked very, very hard to create.
Juries agreed, and in 2025, Adams was awarded €100,000 in damages, which he says he's going to donate to charity.
Adams used to carry the coffins at IRA funerals, the BBC's lawyer told the court.
He's always denied being a member of the IRA, and has been arrested and released without charge for alleged IRA membership more than once. Let us know in the comments if you think this is a good use of the licence fee money.
From my perspective, taking this case was about putting manners on the British Broadcasting Corporation.